So I created this body of work starting in 2019. It took about 4 months to put this body of work together. It's a departure for some of the things that I've done in the past, which are more realistic animals. A couple of years ago, I was at home at my parents' house, and we had to go through everything and toss out all these really cool vintage toys from the 70s. But it kind of inspired this idea of toys and combining that into my work. And I really like the idea of wind-up toys, the idea of starting and stopping, repeating, sort of the obsessive quality of that. This piece, it sort of combines the trajectory of the toys with what I was doing before, which is more realistic animals. And I love all of the detail, down to the fingernails and the teeth, and making them as accurate as possible. And the fur and everything and the color. And this piece actually, it was the first time I sort of gave myself permission to move away from hyper-realistic color, and so I played with color with this piece, which is also, I think, part of the changes that have happened through the pandemic, and the idea of and reassessing what you're doing and why you're doing it, and are you having fun doing it. While this piece might not portray that it was fun, for me it was really fun to make. So it combines the key and the idea of the squirrel who is a hoarder, and the danger of COVID is represented in the bullets, and the idea that the toy or the squirrel could be wound up and the process goes and starts over and over and over and over again, which is kind of how it's felt in 2020. With the 10 toy birds, they were more lighthearted and just fun. They are designs from the 50s, and some of the other toys too. There's a Frenchie and a couple dogs that are early designs of lithographed 10 toys, and I really like the patina of old 10 toys, and also the color and the graphic nature. And so I was inspired by all those designs and sort of made them my own and tried to translate that into clay. And it was harder than I thought it would be, because they have really delicate parts, so I had to redesign a lot of them so that they wouldn't just completely fall apart. Or one of the first pieces in the toy line after I came home from that trip to Atlanta was the Hungry Hungry Hippo, and that was, I was just purely having fun, and I loved that game. If you've ever seen hippos in the Nile, they have birds that sit on their heads, so I wound up putting a 10 toy bird sitting on top of the Hungry Hippo, going with the toy theme. And then that sort of morphed into the idea of pets and playing with toys, or my previous body of work with the animals that I made and what kind of pets they would have and what kind of toys they would have. And so I made a slow loris with a camera that kind of speaks to the 70s from my childhood, and Polaroids. And so the 10 toys that I made later were the loris's pets. I started taking all the toys that I had made in my studio and playing with them, literally playing with them on the light stage and taking pictures and making little vignettes just for fun. So I took a bunch of photographs like that, and then I decided to make a series of Polaroids that would reflect this body of work. I think some of the other pieces that I have, the wrap piece, in my mind, speaks to conservation and environmentalism, and also going back to rats being like a hoarding species. And so I think of the straws that I made, they're little plastic straws. I think of them as like bedding or food that a rat would obsessively glean and take back to their nest, and it sort of reflects how humans are, we behave in the same way sometimes. Maybe we should rethink some of our behaviors. is the little squirrel behind me called Nutty, and it kind of goes back also to going through toys of my youth, and we had a lot of toy guns, and hunting is a family tradition, and in 2020 it seems like, you know, guns have taken on a different, they're no longer, you know, the sport of my youth. They are weapons of destruction, and I feel like sometimes with my themes, they're very whimsical, but they have very serious topics, and for me it's easier to talk about or express my ideas about culture one step removed in more of a whimsical way. And so Nutty is really funny looking, and he's a bit crazy, and but it's a very serious topic for me. I like to sneak those into all of my work. And this body of work actually has been kind of a stepping stone, I think, to get me out of some of my past processes into trying to explore new themes and new ideas, and maybe not being so hidden. So I'm looking forward to what's next over the next year, and I have more ideas with the idea of being wound up.